Quick reminder, today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Thank you.
Okay, we have confirmation from Verizon that the recording has started. Also, we wanted to confirm that the live stream is live. Okay, wonderful.
Brian, the live stream is on, but we need your camera to see you.
I'm sorry?
Are you going to turn your camera on so you appear on the live stream?
I certainly can, yes. I'm sorry, I was talking on the phone here with the conference call. Give me a moment here to get that. I just need to connect there. Thank you. Okay, all right, I have started the video on the live stream. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Very good morning. My name is Ryan, W4NTR, your ARIS moderator for today. Through the help of amateur radio volunteers and the crew on the International Space Station, we soon hope to establish radio contact on the International Space Station as it flies more than 250 miles above the Earth over Greenbelt, Maryland. This is accomplished through ARIS, amateur radio on the International Space Station. The ISS is currently approaching the west coast of the United States, traveling along around 18,000 miles per hour. The contact today will be performed using the ARIS Telebridge Network, a worldwide network of amateur radio ground stations that enables students to contact the ISS. ARIS is an international consortium of volunteers from several nations that assist to develop and operate the amateur radio equipment on board the International Space Station. Some of those agencies that support ARIS are the Amateur Radio Relay League, the Worldwide AMSAT Amateur Radio Satellite Corporations, the Canadian Space Agency, the European Space Agency, the Japanese Space Agency, Roscosmos, the Russian Space Agency, and NASA. The amateur ground station that will establish the radio contact with the ISS today is ARIS Ground Station, Kilo 6 Delta Uniform Echo, located in the Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland, USA, and operated by Ken County. November 3, Foxtrot Zulu X-Ray, Dave Taylor, Whiskey 8 Alpha Alpha Sierra, and Bob McCown, November 3, India, Yankee, India. Thank you for helping us out today, Ken, Dave, and Bob. This contact will also be retransmitted worldwide as a live stream. We will now take a look at the video presentation produced by the American Radio Relay League, which shows students what to expect during our upcoming contact with the International Space Station.
Hi, my name is Ruth.
And my name is Chris.
You must be pretty excited to talk directly with astronauts on the International Space Station today. While we're waiting for the space station to come over your portion of the sky, let's talk a little bit about how it's going to happen. Of course, Mission Control is in contact with astronauts all the time, using a big radio with lots of fancy equipment.
However, we're going to be using something very different today. We are going to use ham or amateur radio to talk directly to the International Space Station.
When most people hear the word radio, they think of a music radio station, but it's so much more than that. Radio actually refers to the unseen energy that transmits all sorts of signals using electromagnetic waves. At first, people learned how to send signals like Morse code, and then they discovered that you can send so much more, like data, computer signals, and even TV.
Maybe you don't realize it, but you use radio every day. Maybe you watched the TV this morning, or you texted your friends, or maybe even you checked social media like Twitter or Instagram.
Let's travel back to space for a minute. Since the beginning of the space age, humans have sent many spacecraft out into the universe. These range from the Hubble Space Telescope orbiting the Earth daily, and the Curiosity rover exploring Mars. We've even sent a long-distance messenger, the Voyager 1, who has traveled outside of our solar system.
Whether it's capturing a great picture of a far-off galaxy or conducting experiments on the space station, radio has to do with all of these. And today, you're going to be using ham radio. Now you might be wondering, what exactly is ham radio?
Amateur or ham radio is a service and a hobby where operators can talk with people around their neighborhoods, their cities, their country, and even around the world. Amateur radio operators require a radio license from the government. They're not that hard to get. I have one. My call sign is KM4LAO.
And mine is KD8YVJ. Our call signs are a way of identifying who we are to other operators. This lets everyone know that we have the proper license to using the radios.
As amateur radio operators, or hams as we are often called, we can talk with others about basically whatever we want, often science or some new radio gadget that we are interested in.
Let's focus back to the space station and your contact today. Many of the astronauts and cosmonauts aboard the space station are licensed ham radio operators. That's why your operators today can contact them. The people here, as well as the astronauts, are licensed to talk to each other, and you are allowed to talk over to their radio.
For our conversation today, we'll need an amateur radio station on the ground, either in this location or somewhere else around the world. We'll also need a radio in the space station.
NA1SS, NA1SS.
You can hear the calls come. This is November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, the International Space Station, over.
On the space station, the radio transceiver is connected to an amateur radio antenna mounted on the outside. One of these antennas will be used today during our contact.
For our side of the contact, we need a good-sized antenna, a signal amplifier, something to make our signal stronger, and a rotator for turning our antenna. We have to keep our antenna pointed right at the International Space Station. And remember, it's moving across the sky and fast.
To aim the antenna properly, we need to track the path of the space station exactly. NASA uses complex systems to track the path of the space station and other orbiting objects.
The satellite tracking program we are using works out a complicated set of mathematics to provide the orbital location of the space station moment by moment as it moves through space. This information is sent into the computer that controls the antenna rotator, which moves the antenna to follow the space station. Maybe some of you have seen or worked with robotics. That's pretty cool stuff. And just like you can program a robot where to go, what to do, and how to get there, you can also program a computer to tell an antenna how to track the space station across the sky.
You know, it took a lot of planning to get this contact. Several weeks ago, the ARIS operations team had to figure out when the space station's orbit would pass over this location. Then, they had to talk with the planners at NASA's Johnson Space Center. The crew's time is pretty full, so they were able to find a time that could work for the crew members' schedules. Once they found times that would work both in space and here on the ground, the host organized this contact. And in just a few minutes, you'll be hearing and talking to the astronauts.
Well, it's almost time for your contact. It will be exciting, so good luck with it.
All right, wonderful. So now what we're going to do is take a short look at a video showing how AIR's contact hooks from the perspective of astronaut Tim Peake. Over.
NA1SS, this is N2SJ, over.
NA2SJ from NA1SS for scheduled contact.
Hi everyone, I'm Tim Peake and welcome aboard the International Space Station, where we're orbiting Earth 16 times every day. One of the most rewarding activities that some astronauts undertake on orbit is to talk to schools using the space station's ham radio. Now these are events that are planned by ARIS, which is a worldwide group of amateur radio volunteers who are dedicated to introducing young people and students to science, technology, engineering and mathematics. Now this is the equipment here in the Columbus laboratory, which consists of a handheld radio, a headset, and we also have a ham video unit. Now as the International Space Station orbits above your location, a radio link is established between the ISS and your school. Now because we're travelling at nearly 18,000 miles per hour, which is an incredible 25 times the speed of sound, we usually get about 9 or 10 minutes of good radio contact before losing the signal. So about 5 minutes before the scheduled start time of the contact, I come into the Columbus laboratory and configure the radio so that I'm on the correct channel. And sometimes I'll set up a ham video too. Just before the predicted time, I'll begin to start calling the school using the standard amateur radio calling techniques. For example, if the call sign of your school was GB4 Fun, I would say Golf Bravo 4, Foxtrot Uniform November. This is Golf Bravo 1 Sierra Sierra, listening and standing by. Now at your school, the radio operator will be listening for my call, but may also transmit and try to call me as well. You'll probably have a much more powerful transmitter on the ground than we have up here on board, so I'm likely to hear you before you hear me. Then, once we can hear each other, then comes the best bit, which is actually talking to the students and answering the questions. Once I've answered all the questions, we use the remaining time to say goodbye to each other and end the connection. I'll then spend a few minutes configuring the radio back into a rebroadcast mode, and then I'll go back to my day job, which is of course doing science on board the International Space Station. ARIS is a brilliant opportunity for astronauts to talk to school pupils. It's really rewarding to hear how excited the students are when they're talking to somebody up here in space. And it's a true privilege to be able to inspire our next generation of scientists and engineers through amateur radio.
We are pleased here to be today with Mr. Royster, the principal, and the instructor to give us a background in regards to the center here. And we'll hand it over here to do the introduction. They'll give the background in regards to the Carter G. Woodson Middle School and its efforts to promote science and technology education. ARIS is very pleased to partner in these efforts.
Good morning. We are so honored to have you here with us today for this super exciting learning experience for our sixth graders here at Carter G. Woodson. It's hard to believe that just in a few minutes we'll be speaking to an astronaut that's at the International Space Station. As we continue on real and relevant learning experiences for our students, as part of our deeper learning journey here at Carter G. Woodson, we feel that communicating beyond the classroom, actually in space, definitely checks that box as we continue to have real and relevant learning experiences beyond the classroom for our students here at Carter G. Woodson. At this time, I'd like to recognize a few special guests that we have with us. Dr. Hagney, our superintendent of schools, could not make it today, but she sends her love. She's actually on the live stream right now, and so she's watching us, and if she could talk, she sure would say something right now. But she is super sad because she could not make it here with us. Also, we have our assistant deputy superintendent, Dr. McLean, there in the back. We have, obviously, our members of the Richmond Amateur Radio Club, and so they have been a huge sponsor for us. And then we have members of our instructional team here in the back also, including Ms. Brumfield, Dr. Behringer, Ms. Butterworth, Berlin Gregory, and then some other instructional coaches, and also Ms. Elaine Moore, instructional coach. So let me just tell you how this process came about. About a year ago, Ms. Perry, a brand new science teacher here at Carter G. Woodson Middle School, submitted a proposal to ARIS. And after a lengthy process, she came to me with the great news that Carter G. Woodson was one of 10 schools in the country that was chosen to be part of this special project. And so we are super excited as Woodson Wildcats to be a part of this ARIS program. And so we are honored that we were chosen. This preparation did not begin overnight. Ms. Perry worked closely with the Richmond Amateur Radio Club to bring experiences to the classroom that prepare them for today, our students for today. The members of the Richmond Amateur Radio Club came to Carter Woodson numerous times this school year, partnered with our students, collaborated with them, and got them ready for today's big event. Students communicated using Morse code. They learned how sound travels in waves. They practice over radio skills using walkie-talkies. And obviously you'll see the results of their hard work today. Over. On the screen in front of me, you'll be able to follow the actual orbit of the space station as it travels around Earth. Only when we are inside the yellow circle are we able to make radio contact with them. On the other screen here, to your right, my left, you'll getting a view of the amateur radio station K6DUE in Baltimore, Maryland. These gentlemen are mission control for our event today and monitoring our contact window. Also in the Zoom is our moderator, Ryan, who we've already met, who is in Florida. And he can see us as we are all part of a live stream broadcast together. It is important that we stay quiet during the duration of this event so the space station can hear us and we can hear his responses. We ask that everyone remain seated during the interaction so that no sound or there's no distraction as we participate in this wonderful opportunity. So we're about to make radio contact with the International Space Station and astronaut Dr. Thomas Mashburn in a few minutes. With that, I also want to give a special shout out to our STEAM instructional coach, Ms. Huffman, who has partnered with Ms. Perry for the past year as part of this big project. So kudos to her too. Ryan, our moderator, will be with us as we continue to begin that countdown here in the next 10 minutes. Thank you for coming. We appreciate your support, and we're super excited for this experience. This is a lifetime experience which I know our young people will never forget.
Thank you, Principal Royster. We are approximately about 10 minutes contact time.
This is K6UE, and we're seeing AOS in 10 minutes and 15 seconds. Over.
All right, thank you all so much for coming. I know it means a lot to our sixth graders who have worked hard all year preparing for this special day, and we will continue to do more awesome, exciting radio technology activities. So this isn't just it. This is a continuing thing going on. So I just briefly wanted to go over some things that we've done in partnership with the Richmond Amateur Radio Club. We are so thankful for that relationship that we have been building for almost a year now. Last year, they came over I think it was about like 5 or 6 volunteers from the Richmond Amateur Radio Club, some doctors, some engineers, all retired, came to volunteer to look at our school. They took a look at our building. We figured out which space would be best to have this event. We also planned out some activities that we then did this past year. We started off learning about sound waves, how sound waves travel. We can't see the sound waves, but we are but they are necessary for how sound gets transmitted and received. So we learned different parts of a sound wave. Students got to use cups and string to model how sound actually travels. After that, they were able to use handheld radio. They used proper lingo and etiquette for what you would do if you were a ham radio. So students learned that they could actually get their own radio licenses, and we have a few that are still interested in that. They learned that if you do have a ham license, you are saying that you are going to help out in an emergency situation. So we practiced what that would look like if there was an emergency, having to share your location, where you are, and use the proper techniques to communicate over those radios. Then the next project that we worked on was Morse code. Students learned how to write their names in Morse code first, and they used light oscillators to practice communicating their names. And then once they did that, they were ready to actually send messages to their friends and try to decipher what their friends were saying using Morse code. We talked about the importance of sometimes you can't always communicate verbally, so why that was important. We talked about why that was important and how we can do that. So all these projects led up to today and our contact with the astronaut. So thank you all again for coming to support us. Over.
7 minutes until contact time. Just a reminder for all of our participants today, if you do have a cell phone, please make sure that it is silenced or muted so that it's not interrupted during the contact. We appreciate your patience and cooperation in this matter. Thank you. Ken at Kilo 6 Delta Uniform Echo. Before the contact begins, can you please tell us about your ARIS ground station, where you are, and how you will handle the conversation? Over.
Thank you. We are pleased to be here today to help you with your ISS contact. Amateur radio station K6DUE is located on the top floor of a building at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. We are just north of Washington, D.C. Today we have myself, Ken McCoy, call sign N3FZX, Bob McCown, call sign N3IYI, and Dave Taylor, W8AAS, as the volunteer operators of the station. On the roof is a directional antenna high above the ground that will be pointed at the ISS as it passes directly over our location. The antenna is connected to a radio that is also connected to the phone line we are using to talk to you. We use a computer running satellite tracking software to tell us where the ISS is. It steers the antenna to maintain a good signal for the duration of the pass and controls the radio to compensate for Doppler shift. The operator here at K6DUE will control our radio's transmit and receive modes, while the astronaut controls the ISS radio. Only one station can talk at a time while the other listens. This is why it's very important to clearly say over so that we know when to switch the radio back to receive mode so you can hear the astronaut's reply to your question. Just before the pass is to start, and we get ready to call the ISS, we'll open the radio squelch, and you will hear some static, and it will sound like this. You'll hear some of the static until ISS answers our call. Once we've established contact, we will turn it over to the first student to ask their question. We are now ready for the contact with the ISS. We wish you great success, and we are now 3 minutes exactly from acquisition of signal. Back to you, over.
Ken, thank you very much, and we do appreciate all of your efforts there and everyone that is participating. We'll now have silence here for just about a minute here. We now have around 1 minute before the space station comes over Kilo 6 Delta Uniform Echo Amateur Radio Ground Station. Remember, what we are doing on the ISS is an experiment, so we can never tell the results, positive or negative, until the experiment is over. And students, please don't forget to say over at the end of your conversation. In a short time, the station will be coming over Greenbelt, so it's all yours, Ken, and good luck.
Thank you, Ryan. We are showing 1 minute and 30 seconds to AOS. We will begin calling ahead of that just to make sure that we can maximize the opportunity and get all the questions answered. So we're going to stand by here, and we'll get ready to call in a few minutes, or actually a few seconds. And just to let you know that we'll have to probably call the ISS a few times before we hear them. And our antennas are starting to position themselves to points part of the sky where ISS will be rising above the horizon. And we are going to begin calling now. NA1SS, NA1SS, here is K6DUE for scheduled school contact. How do you copy? Over. NA1SS, NA1SS, here is K6DUE for scheduled school contact. How copy? Over.
K6DUE, this is NA1SS. How do you reach?
We hear you 5 by 5. Very good. We're ready to begin with the first school question. School, go ahead. Over.
This is Imani. What made you want to live in space? Over.
K6DUE, this is NA1SS. Read you loud and clear. Ready for the first question.
This is K6DUE. We copy you loud and clear as well. School, can you start that first question again? Over.
This is Imani. What made you want to live in space? Over.
I was always fascinated with science and technology. I had a sense of adventure. I was very curious. Wanted to see what the Earth looked like from space and what it would be like to live in zero-G. How copy? Over.
This is Troy. How do you not run out of food, and where does it come from? Over.
There are scientists and cooks around the world at various space centers that prepare food for us, dehydrated and safe food for us to eat. They pack it in rockets that launch from several places around the world, and we get plenty of great food up here. Over.
This is Serenity. Have any animals ever been on board the ISS? Over.
Yes, we have 13 mice with us right now. There have been insects, Lots of cellular organisms that have come up with us as well. Over.
This is Matthew. How do you return to Earth? Over.
We return in the same spaceship that we launched on. We launched on a Dragon. It is SpaceX Dragon. It is docked to the space station, ready to take us home, either in an emergency or when it's time to come home in a couple months. Over.
This is Anaje. What meals do you eat in space? Over.
Eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we have plenty of food for snacks in between if we'd like it. Over.
This is Ayana speaking for Breon. What is your helmet made of and how does it work? Over.
Well, the helmet is made of a very durable plastic. It has to do several things. It has to protect us from the vacuum. It has to allow us to see outside through a visor, so part of it has to be transparent. And it keeps airflow around our head to get rid of carbon dioxide. Over.
This is Dominic. How many miles does the ISS travel in a day? Over.
So, Dominic, I'm going to ask you and your classmates to calculate that. You need to get the radius of the Earth plus 250 miles, and the ISS travels 16 orbits in a day. So with that information, I think you'd be able to calculate it out. Over.
This is Olajne speaking for Canada. What do you do when you're not performing experiments or working on equipment? Over.
We love to eat, we love to look out the window and take pictures of the Earth, and we love to talk to our families. We have a system where we can call them if the satellites are arranged just right. Over.
This is Jaleel. When you return back to Earth, do you experience any side effects from being in space for 6 months? Over.
Yes, Ernell, you do quite a bit. Our bones and our muscles may be a little bit weak, so we might feel weak. But our vestibular system, that is the system that keeps us upright, and so we know where we are when we're standing, that is very weak. And sometimes we have trouble standing up and walking and turning corners. Over.
This is Samar. What scientific discoveries have you made on board the ISS? Over.
I've been providing data for scientists who are making scientific discoveries all the time. We'll find out the results from what we're doing right now, but in the past, we've discovered evidence for the source of dark matter. We've found out that cells work completely different just from being in zero-G, and we've been able to discover new vaccines based on protein crystal growth, and that's just a few of the very many scientific discoveries that have been made.
This is Imani. What have you learned while on board the ISS? Over.
We've learned lots of things, a lot about ourselves and about working with each other, a lot about how to work effectively in zero-G because everything is floating around. We've learned how our bodies react to zero-G. But since I've been up here, I've also learned a lot about the science. I've learned how to handle some fluids and just recently, last week, some cells, human cells, how to handle them, to put them through an experiment. We're always learning every day up here.
This is Troy. What is the goal you have during your mission? Over.
In every mission, we have 3 goals. Number 1 is to be safe. Number 2 is to accomplish the science objectives and any maintenance that we have to do to keep the space station going. And lastly, the goal is to have a good time. We want astronauts to work hard but enjoy themselves so they want to come back again. Over.
This is Serenity. What kind of weather do you experience on board? Over.
None of the weather you may think of. It's always 74 degrees Fahrenheit here, and it is always about 30% humidity. But we also have space weather, which is radiation. And so that changes every day depending on the solar cycle. Over.
This is Matthew. How do you get water to the ISS? Over.
Matthew, we bring water up from the ground, but it's very heavy, so most of the water we get, we just recycle. So the water comes from our bodies every way you can imagine, and it gets recycled into drinking water in a couple of days, which is actually very clear and delicious.
This is Anaje. What equipment do you need for a spacewalk? Over.
Anaji, the most important thing is your spacesuit to keep you alive and to allow you to do the work so that you can see and use your hands. And it depends on the spacewalk. We have drills. We have almost any tool you can imagine to allow us to do our work. Over.
This is Ayana speaking for Brian. What does the moon look like from the ISS? Over.
Ayana, the moon looks surprisingly like it does on the ground that you would see on a very clear night. The color is a little different. It looks exactly like its real color, which is sort of an ash gray and not quite as bright as on the Earth. Over.
This is Dominic. Do you have doctors on board to help when you get sick or injured? Over.
Dominic, I am a medical doctor, but that just happened to be on this flight. We don't always have a doctor, but we always have at least 2 astronauts trained to take care of sick crew members if that happens. Over.
This is Olajane. How long does it take to get used to sleeping on a wall? Over.
Hello, Olajane. It takes a few days. It differs from person to person, but floating is not very comfortable when you're trying to fall asleep sometimes, but after that, and you get used to it, it's some of the best sleep you've ever had in your life. Over.
This is Jalil. How did it feel traveling up to the ISS? Over.
Darnell, I hope you and everyone has a chance to travel up into space and come to a place like the ISS. It was a rocket ride, and it was incredibly exciting. A lot of G-forces pressing down on us as we accelerated off the Earth to go from 0 miles an hour to 17,500 miles an hour, about 5 times the speed of a rifle bullet. And right after that happens, you experience zero G for the first time once you're on orbit, and that's very delightful.
This is Samar. How do you train to live in a low-gravity environment? Over.
Hey, Samar, that's an interesting question because we don't have a way in 1G to do that, except for about 30 seconds at a time. As you may have seen on some videos, people get in airplanes that drop out of the sky just like and are in free fall, just like we are when we're in orbit. But we have to learn how to do that once we get here, and that is takes a couple of weeks to a couple of months to be effective in working in zero G. Over.
That was the final question. I'd like to thank the ISS for contacting us. And school, can we give a good cheer for astronaut Tom? Very good. NA1SS, this is K6DUE. We have made it through all of the questions. Over.
K6DUE, it was an honor to talk to you all. I can't wait to see you all in space someday. Just study hard, and hope to see you soon. This is NA1SS signing off.
And this is K6DUE signing off. 73s. Over.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just have shared a wow moment of history. Amateur radio ground station Kilo 6 Delta Uniform Echo, located at the Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, and operated by Ken McCaughey. November 3, Foxtrot Zulu X-Ray, Dave Taylor, Whiskey 8, Alpha Alpha Sierra, and Bob McCown. November 3, India Yankee India, contacted astronaut Tom Ashburn, Kilo Echo 5, Hotel Oscar Charlie, aboard the International Space Station, and spoke with students at the Carter G. Woodson Middle School in Hopewell, Virginia. Now, for the international volunteer team of ARIS, including the Amateur Radio Satellite Corporations around the world, the American Radio Relay League, Canadian Space Station Agency, the European Space Agency, the Japanese Space Agency, Roscosmos, and NASA. This is Ryan Krenzicek, Whiskey 4, November Tango Romeo, your ARIS moderator, sending my greetings to all of you in amateur radio terms, 73, which means best wishes. Bye for now.